Hi everyone, it's nice to be back. I've taken that break that I meant to take for maybe a couple of weeks turned into 9. Sorry about that. But it was much needed. I needed to have that little bit of rest. My elbow is feeling much better. Very little pain left. So now I can knit again. I stopped knitting for I want to say 6 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, and only really started these last few weeks. But I was able to get some projects done because I was renewed in my knitting, and that I could, get to work. I've got a little bit of a different setup here. I rearranged my room because the way that it was set up wasn't working for me. I had no floor space. Now I have a little bit. Don't worry about my yarn here. This is not how I normally keep it. I've only set it up for the podcast for today. I'll fix that a little bit. Normally I have all of this in a bin. I just wanted to take advantage of this corner, and I had a couple on this side that I do keep in here. Really, all that I keep in here is like this, that. Everything else I went and I pulled it out from bags, and I pulled it out from my bins for everything here. So that way I don't have to worry about moth. And I also wanted to show off some of my plants. So without further ado, why don't we get back into other things? Oh, I should probably talk about what I've been doing. Musical update, I guess. So the Luminous Ensemble had our final performance of the season there in at the end of May. I was able to finally wear my suit that Jessie had made for me, and it was lovely and cool that day that I wore it. We got some new music. We got a sneak peek at what the new season's going to be like. We're also going to be doing the date has yet to be set, but there's going to be like a fundraising concert for Luminous featuring the Luminous performers, and most of the choir is going to be singing some stuff, but I've signed up to play the clarinet. So if you're going to be in town there towards the middle to end of August is where the time frame is supposed to be looking at, you might have the chance to see me play. And we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, the weekend before Halloween, the Luminous Ensemble, as well as Luminous Chamber Orchestra, I will be singing, not playing in the orchestra this time around. We are going to be doing the Phantom of the Opera, not the Andrew Lloyd Webber version that probably pops to mind when I say the Phantom of the Opera. It's kind of hard to explain. So the 1920s-ish movie, that is the silent movie of the Phantom of the Opera, that is going to be playing on a silver screen behind us, and then the Luminous Choir and Chamber Orchestras, or not orchestras, the Luminous Choir and the Chamber Orchestra are going to be providing live music for the silent movie. And we're going to have 3 shows. One's in Summerside, the Friday before Halloween, which I believe is the 28th. Dates on your screen. And we're going to be doing 2 shows in Charlottetown that Saturday, a matinee and then an evening concert. I do believe that we're going to be at the Celtic Performing Center in Summerside, and we're going to be at Fitzsimmons Concert Hall there in Charlottetown on the Holland College campus. So I'm really excited for that set. And yeah, another update, I guess. I think I mentioned that I was going to be doing getting some dental work done. I've gotten all that dental work. So all of the cleanings and fillings, and I had a tooth extracted, which I guess that would be a good story time. If you're a little squeamish and you don't like hearing about gross tooth stories, and it's not that graphic, but if you're squeamish, I'll put a timestamp here that you can skip to, so that way you don't have to hear the story. But anyway, so I got some work done there all through May, and then one day in June I had 5 dentist appointments in 6 weeks. So it was a whole thing. So it's partially because I haven't gone to a dentist in a really long time. Partially when I was still on the dental plan that my mother had while I was going through college. I was just little kid waiting for my mom to make me a dentist appointment, and waiting for her to do that, I didn't do it, and it was just really childish. So the first number of years that I stopped going to the dentist was because of that. But after I turned 25 and I was no longer on her plan, I had a dental plan through the company that I worked for as a technical support agent. But the insurance that we had was garbage, and the way that it worked back then was I had to pay for my dental work out of pocket, which I didn't get paid enough to really cover rent properly. But I had to pay that out of pocket, and then maybe 6 weeks later, I'd get some of the money back. Since I was not in a financial situation where I could go without $200 or $300 for a month and a half, I just never went. So that led to me having a tooth break and explode, quite literally, on me there when I was in my late 20s. Where what happened, I had a cavity on the very back of a wisdom tooth, because all of my wisdom teeth had come in at that point. I had a cavity on the very back of the wisdom tooth where like my toothbrush couldn't actually clean properly. This is what flossing's for, guys. And what happened is that it like bore all the way into my tooth. And when I was working at that call center, I went through a period of probably 4 to 6 weeks where I had some really severe jaw pain. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night with pain. And I had never had a toothache before, so I just thought, oh, it's just my sensitive teeth. I'll just go brush with some Sensodyne, and that helped a little bit. And then I'd take some Tylenol and go to bed. So eventually, when I was 27, 28, I want to say, I was living at home at my parents' place at the time, because it was right after I had took over the yarn shop that I had in Montague there from 2017 through 2018. So I guess I would have been, that was 7 years ago, so that would put me at 27. So one night after supper, I was just, sitting watching TV, and I sneezed, and I felt something fly into the front of my mouth, and my first thought was, oh, that's gross, but it's probably just a piece of food, so I'll just kick it back and swallow it. So I kicked it back into my teeth, chomped down, and it felt like I chomped on plaster. So what had happened was, when I sneezed, I actually blew my back right molar, this top molar here, apart. So that was a number of years ago. And then I went and got that extracted there when I was 27. And never went back to the dentist. And that was back in 2017. So like I would, brush my teeth. I would floss more often for a little while. Started using mouthwash. So eventually I started having tooth pain up here, there, in February of this year, up on the right, and to the point that like I didn't want to chew things on this side of my mouth. So I thought, oh, maybe I've got a cavity, or maybe something else is going on, so I need to go book a dentist appointment. So I booked a dentist appointment. And I went to the dental hygienist. I think I've talked about this the last time, but I had a bunch of cavities just in the top of my mouth, on either side, and some in my teeth. So then, and I also needed to get them to give me a teeth cleaning. So there was some tartar buildup that they decided that it would be good course of action to like freeze one half of my mouth, do one half, then freeze the other half and do the other side. So that was always the plan. So I went into the dental hygienist for them to like really go through to see what needed to be done. They're like, oh, you've got cavities here and here. Let's figure out when we're going to do them. And what was planned there in May was do a teeth cleaning on this side. Then a couple weeks later, we would do the fillings. And then the next week, we'd freeze this side. And the following day, we'd do the fillings on this side. So we did that. And the cleanings were painful. They were I was frozen, so I didn't have any pain at that point. But once the freezing wore off, like just so much pain, so much pain. So I went and I got that all done, and then between the cleaning on this side, on my left side, it was a Thursday morning. I got the cleaning done, and then the next day I was supposed to go in for the. Yeah, was it the next day? I think it was the next day. Yes, that's right. So teeth cleaning on Thursday, went in on Friday in the afternoon for the fillings, and so I got the. Oh no, that's not quite how it went. It was a Thursday, but I had gotten the fillings done on this side. That's what happened. I got the fillings done on this side, and then the next week I was going to get the cleaning done and get the fillings the next day. So that's how it was going to work. So I got the fillings on this side done, and the next morning, the Friday morning, I was driving into work, and because the fillings felt weird on this side, like if I were to describe the difference, like my molars more angular feeling in my mouth, and then the fillings kind of smoothed everything over, so it's kind of like my top teeth have domes in them as opposed to like the ripply parts of teeth. Anyway, so I was feeling that with my tongue, and kind of worrying it a little bit. So I was feeling, and then I slicked my tongue around my mouth, and I felt something on the back of this top tooth here, the back top molar, like another wisdom tooth here on this side. So I take my finger and whip around my mouth, expecting to find like a piece of food from breakfast or something like that. And I felt something there. So using the soft part of my finger, I just pried it off my tooth. And this is the gross part. It kind of felt the equivalent of taking a really sticky Tupperware container off the lid off a Tupperware container, but I did that to my tooth, and what I ended up doing was pulling a full quarter of my tooth off there. Yeah, so that top wisdom tooth broke as well. So I went and I called the dentist and hey, I was just there yesterday, got some fillings. Can we look at maybe doing an extraction when we go do my other fillings next week? And they're like, oh my God, are you in pain? I'm like, no, it seems to be fine. I'll just, be wary with what I eat. I go in for my teeth cleaning on this side, and when my dentist, Dr. Hillary, comes in and freezes my mouth, she takes a peek at it, and she's like, okay, well, you've got 3 fillings tomorrow. I don't know if we can fit you in, but we will see. And if we can't, then we'll schedule in for another thing. And she's like, we could put a crown on it, but since the other one's already gone, we could just extract it. I'm like, yes, extract it, please, because I didn't want to use any more money. I didn't want to pay any more money for this dental stuff. Anyway, so I go in. The next day, I end up being a little bit late for my appointment because I had thought it was at 9 a.m., but it was actually at 8:20 a.m. So they called me at 8:25 just as I was putting my shoes on to start getting ready. And they're like, hey, you're late for your appointment. I'm like, oh, I thought it was at 9. She's like, no, it was at 8:20. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just leaving now. I'll be there in 10 minutes. So I was 15 minutes late for the appointment. So they only did 1 filling because that's all the time that they had to do. And then I got scheduled in for the middle of June for the extraction and the other 2 fillings. So, so I went and got that extraction done. And I didn't realize it in the moment, but after the fact, I realized I had a panic attack in the chair where I wanted to run, and I was I'm used to being nervous. I'm used to feeling anxious, but this was just a little bit further than that. And then the way that it was working was that they did the fillings, so they froze part of my mouth for the fillings, and then Dr. Hillary's like, okay, well, just let me know if you need more freezing for the extraction, and we'll do that. Just raise your hand. So when it came to that time where I needed more freezing because it had started to wear off at that point, and it just wasn't targeted at exactly the part where it needed to be done. I tried to raise my hand, but like I was holding my hands like this, just laid across my belly while I was laying back, and I was so nervous I could not let go of my hand because I was just clenching so hard. So I'm like, yeah, I need, and she's like, do you need medicine? I'm like, yeah, I do. And she's like, okay, just 1 second. And she went and froze it, and she's like, okay, we'll give it 2 minutes, and then we'll go back at it. And then they removed the tooth. Yeah, so I got to see the crater that I had created. But it was a great experience. We'll just put it that way. Dr. Hillary's fantastic, and all the ladies that work at the Lennox dental crew, you do good work. Through all of those dentist appointments that I've gone through this year thus far, because that was 6 so far this year, and I have another cleaning in November. I have blown through my entire dental budget with my healthcare plan. So I think I can use $3 more. I think I have $3 more left in my plan that I can put towards my cleaning there in November. So that was the final kick in the ass that I needed to, brush every day, twice a day, use mouthwash, floss. So that's that. Yeah. So that's how my life's been for the last little while. Yeah. I kind of forget how to end these things. So this week I do have quite a few things to show you because I was able to get a lot of things done. So I'm going to go through what I finished in chronological order. Not all of it's knitting or crochet though. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the Sylphide Jacket. All right. So I have already given this to Jess. I'll hold this in the light so that way you can see it. So that's the back of the jacket. This is the sleeve, so that way you can see all the bluebells in this massive sleeve. Yeah, so I gave this to Jess shortly after the last podcast. Did I show this finished to you on the last? It's been a while. I should probably have looked that up before I started, but we'll talk about it again. So this is the Sylphide Jacket by Helene Arnesen. I think I showed you guys the garment before I did some tweaks to it. Because after I gave this to Jess the first time, I got her to try it on, and the way that this edging here, this is the front of the jacket. The way that this raglan sleeve was showing up here, there was a lot extra fabric right here in this corner. And what was happening is that was just kind of I hit the mic. What was happening was kind of flapping out there a little bit. So I ripped out my neckline, or her neckline, I guess. Ripped out the neckline, added more rows to it, and then redid the neckline there once again. So that way it fits a lot better. Yeah, so Jessie loves it. She's worn it a few times. It is, well, we're not in the middle of a heat wave per se, but it has been quite humid these past few weeks. So she has not worn it since, I want to say, halfway through June, but she's worn it as many times as she can fit it in before putting it away for the winter time. So this is, as I mentioned, the Sylphide Jacket by Helene Arnesen. I did this in Belfast Mini Mills Island Collection Fingering is what this yarn was. And I ended up using 8.5 balls, so 425 grams worth of yarn. The pattern called for 300 grams for the largest size, and I went up another size compared to that. So make sure you buy, if you're going to do this pattern, make sure you buy some extra yarn so that way you can complete it. The other thing I'd recommend is use a smaller needle if you're going to use a fingering weight like I did here. Our Island Collection's somewhere between a fingering and a sport weight. But either use a true sport weight yarn or go down a needle size and make a larger size and have some extra yarn, because I find that the fabric's a little meshy compared to what I would want, but it's breathing well for her, so That's just a personal preference thing. Yeah, so that's how that went. So the next thing that I finished, since you've been here, being here last, is actually not a knitting project. Yeah, as you know, my roommate Jessie is quite the seamstress. She's very good at sewing and all of those kind of thread crafts, we'll call them, as opposed to yarn crafts or fiber crafts. So after she finished my suit, which I did get to wear there at the end of May, there was a little bit of linen left over from this suit. And I decided that I would try my hand at sewing. The last time I had sewn anything other than doing like a quick repair under an arm or something like that was in home ec when I was in junior high back in grade 7, grade 8, grade 9. So it has been 20 years. Well, that makes me feel old. Yeah, so I decided to try my hand at it, and I found a pattern for a bow tie, since this suit doesn't come with a bow tie like all my other suits, and sometimes I do need to wear a bow tie if I'm going to be wearing like a tux. I need to have a bow tie. So I took some of the scraps from the linen and I made a bow tie. So yeah, so this is my bow tie. This pattern actually calls for it to be like attached to bow tie hardware, so like a hook and not quite an eye, but a hook and eye situation is what I'm going to call it, so that way it's adjustable. All I did was I just quickly tacked the ends here together just with a couple of, well, I went over the stitches a couple times, just so that way it's just tacked together. I can take it apart with a pair of scissors, no problem, later if I so need to. But yeah, so I have a bow tie made out of the same linen as my suit, so that way it matches. It was kind of a fun project, and I have started another sewing project. I'm doing a Henley shirt for myself. We'll see how that goes, because it is already proving more difficult than the linen tie was, because I'm finding, or at least I found that the cotton that I'm using, which I just went to Value Village and bought a couple sheets, but the cotton that I'm using is acting differently, and it is acting differently. It's not quite as rigid as the linen was. It's more, I mean, it's like a cheap bed sheet, so it's kind of flowy, which is why I bought it, but it's harder to work with. We'll see how it goes. So that's project number 2. Project number 3 that I finished, and you would have seen if you follow my Instagram, which if you don't follow my Instagram, what are you doing? You should do that. But you've already seen me tease this. I have finished the Raga sweater. It is done. So that way you can see it in its whole glory. The Raga sweater, completed. And when I say completed, I mean all the ends are darned in. I have even tacked down the steeks with, just to show you an arm. So there's where all of the, right here is where all of my color changes happened. I darned in, or how do we put it? I wove my ends in as I went. So I really just needed to go and trim everything after it was all done. I've also attached some ribbon to the steeks here. Don't look too closely because my sew job is not great. But I just did a basic whip stitch. And I learned that I can't sew while drinking, because I believe it was that arm there Friday night, so just a couple days ago, after having a glass of wine. And after I had finished sewing both sides, because I did each side as 2 separate ribbons, and then kind of just tacked them at the top, so that way, like when I put my arm in, it doesn't feel constricting. It's not connected under the arm at all. I did both sides, and then when I went to go turn it inside out, turned out that I had sewn parts of this clothes. There was I think I counted 12 spots where I had sewn through both sides of my knitted fabric, so I didn't actually have an armhole. I had an arm seam. So I ripped that out, and well, I put it away for the rest of the evening, and then the next morning, after I had sobered up, I went and I redid it, and then I finished off with the ribbon here for the neck steeks as well. This ribbon's nothing special per se. It is silk ribbon, I'm assuming by the fact that it's a collaboration between Lily Silk and something else. But this ribbon was just a scrap that Jessie had lying around, and she tells me that she got it from not a subscription box, but like a gift box sort of dealy, and this was wrapped around the gift box. So I was able to swipe some ribbon from her to sew that all together. So now this is completely done, and I regret to say I was right in that it does not fit me. So it fits me fine across the chest. It fits me fine across the shoulder. In fact, actually fits me really well across the shoulder. It fits me well across the chest. It's just that it hugs my love handle a little bit too much because down here, this is the bottom seam. I realize that this is getting in my way, so new situation next week. The corrugated rib, like this is sitting just so perfectly that the corrugated rib like sucks in just at my belt line, so this naturally wants to like puff out right where my love handle is, and my love handle is right on the back side of that, so it doesn't look like the way that the fabric would fall around that part. It looks like it's filled with love handle, and that's because it is. So I'm just going to relax my my eating habits of chips on a regular basis, and maybe cut back on a little bit of the wine, and hopefully by the time it's actually appropriate to wear this in the fall, that I will feel more confident around my love handles for this. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I really love the colors. After blocking it, it did even out all of my tension. Yeah, I feel really happy with how that turned out. So for those of you who are joining me for the first time, this is the Raga sweater by Violet McQuade. It was written for Spindrift, Jamerson Spindrift yarn 2-ply. And I did this in Knit Picks Palette, the 2-ply fingering weight yarn, Peruvian Highland wool. And it turned out beautifully. The colors that I use in orders from light to dark is oyster is the gray, and then the greens are alfalfa, edamame, and forest heather, and then the purples are clematis heather, eggplant, and I don't remember the last one. It's on your screen. It's on your screen. Yeah, so I'm really pleased. I can't wait to wear this in September, October, when it's actually cool enough to wear, or some morning where it's cold, and just have my coffee out on the patio, or balcony, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so I'm really pleased with that. It is very warm in here. It is very warm in here. Whew. It's the middle of, well, I'm not going to say heat wave, because it's not actually that hot. It's just really, really humid these past few days because it's rained literally every day. And I turned off the air conditioner and the fan so that way you guys couldn't hear a whirring in the background. So that's all my finished objects for today, which I feel that's a lot of finished objects for me, but when you don't have a podcast when you don't have an episode for 9 months, it kind of does the trick for you. I do want to show you some progress that I have made on a couple other projects. So I have not darned this. I have not darned in any ends. I'm not actually finished. I just put this on the form. This is not even blocked. I just put it on the form so that way you can see it in action. So this is Nancy Wheeler's Ravishing socks, and I'm doing this in Belfast Mini Mills specialty sock. I don't know why that was so hard for me to remember. In a colorway that we don't have anymore. This was olive, dark olive, I think is what it was called. And it's coming together quite nicely. You can see the detail there up on the side. If the other side is the same, and then there's a cute little detail here on the back, which exposes my bad tension because of this space here. That's not supposed to be any different from those two channels. It's just that when I go from a purl to a knit, it's tighter than if I go from well, how is this done? Okay. Yeah. So I had to think about how that was done. My purl to knit stitch is a lot tighter than my purl to twisted knit stitch. So that's why these two channels look a little different. That's a tension thing on my end. Am I going to retension it? No, I'm just going to leave it like that. So yeah, so this is my Ravishing sock. This is number 1. So far, I have just turned the heel on number 2, and I hope to have this finished here in the next week or so. Yeah, so I'm getting there. I've only got a few more projects left to do. Pull out my ball sack. Yeah, so here I am on my other sock. I have literally just finished turning the heel. I am working on my Chiaogu shorties here, and yeah, I just joined the ball. I'll probably finish this here in the next week or so. I don't know what else to say. I feel like I'm a little out of practice. But yeah, this is the Ravishing sock by Nancy Wheeler. And the last thing I'm going to show you today is how I'm getting along with my Lacewings. I don't know if I knit too much since the last time you guys saw this, because I haven't really knit a lot. So this is one of those projects that kind of just have gone on the back burner. I'm just going to try to blow through a lot of projects that I need to finish, and then I'll come back to this and continue with my series on lace and Shetland lace and all of that. I might revamp that a little bit because it doesn't make sense that I'm using a single ply that I spun myself and knitting Irish lace instead of Shetland lace. We'll come back to that. But yeah, so this is the Lacewing so far. It's hard to show lace when it's on the needles, but I just finished a color repeat, so the next steps, or it's kind of hard to say if this is a color repeat per se, because it goes from green back to blue, purple, and then back into like this magenta color. So I guess that means I'm only about halfway through a color repeat. Part of the reason why I kind of stopped doing this, not only that I couldn't really do much with my elbow, but I'm almost at the very end of what was written for this pattern, even though I've got an entire ball, and I'm halfway through a color repeat, and I've got 10 full color repeats. So I'm going to have to make some stuff up. But so far, I really like how vibrant this color is. This is hand spun by me using my Kiwi 3, and the fiber I got from Good Vibration is in the color Drink the Kool-Aid, and I believe this is the Polworth and Silk that I have. The other one that I have spun from Good Vibrations is right here, gift wrap, and I believe that one is BFL. Or is that Polworth? And this is BFL. It's on your screen. It's on your screen. Yeah. So I'm just trucking along on some of these projects here. So thus far of the Epic Whip SmackDown, I do believe that's 2 more done. So that brings me up to, is it 3 done? Is it 3 done, Joanne? I think I have 3 done. I want to say I might have a 4th, but I don't think I do. I'll have to check, and I would check my phone, but it's right there. Right. So that's 3 projects of the Epic Whip SmackDown that Joanne and I haven't really done a lot with. So I have just finished the Sylphide Jacket. The Raga is done. That means my Freddy Beach socks are done, so that's 3. I know that my Ravishing socks 4, and my Ducks and Goose is 5. I have to look back to see what number 6 is. I think it's my Peacock shawl, which I haven't touched those last 2 things. So yeah, I'm almost done, Joanne. You should probably catch up. I'll see you at midnight. Yeah, so I think it's just going to be a quick one here today, just to try to get me back into the groove, because I feel like I've gotten a little rusty doing the podcast. As time goes on, I'm going to be picking back up some of the tutorials that I have in the back chamber. I'm going to try a few new things, because I got my old camera working again, and so the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is the whole reason why I wanted to get back into doing the podcast this week specifically, One of the things that I've been really trying to focus on since I was struggling a lot with just feeling burnt out for a while is that I've been making a point to spend some time with myself and do things for myself and for no one else. So like me finishing these projects, this was for me to finish and not for me to finish things for the podcast, because that was like the mentality that I had for a little while. And I just needed to have a change of pace in that regard, because what my life had become was, get up and go to work. And then while you're at work, make sure that you are knitting something that's from the yarn that's at work, so that way you can showcase the yarn. Then when you come home, you need to knit a bunch of stuff for the podcast. And then on Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, Saturday nights, Tuesday nights, you have all these things that you're doing. So you don't actually have time to do any knitting. So you have to get up in the morning so that way you can get a little bit of knitting done, and blah, blah, so on and so forth. So it's been really like good for my own like motivation, my own mental health, all of those fun things, for me to just like take some time and just do stuff for me. So I played a lot of video games because it's one of the things that I love doing, and I haven't been doing a lot of that lately. And when my arm was feeling well enough for me to start knitting again, like I was just knitting the projects that I just wanted to get off my needles, like the Raga sweater. And I have a little linty bit there. Was that there the entire time? Anyway, so I've been doing that. And I've been really just focusing on giving myself some time that is for me and being it unapologetically selfish time. Something that I've always like felt throughout my entire life, not to get too deep here, is that I've always felt like I do lots of things for other people, and then for any time that I would like do something that could be construed as being selfish, like people would call out, "You're being selfish" in those moments, and I've always tried to not be. So like, since that mentality of me doing things for other people all the time, and then the 1, 2, or 3 times that I would actually do something for myself, since it was such a change in my behavior, people reacted to that poorly and called me selfish for those moments, that I've always felt really guilty about doing things for myself. But these past few weeks, I've been really focusing on trying to do these things, so that way I don't feel so burnt out, and that way I can actually enjoy my life, living. So I selfishly played video games. I purposefully didn't do something productive because I wanted to do anything else, honestly. So what I decided here is that I kind of want to challenge each and every one of you who's still watching the podcast, because it's been a while. But I want to challenge each and one of you to do a 100-day challenge with me. So I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing, but I'm going to be documenting, kind of, like not religiously by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm going to be like trying to coax people to do some things for themselves. I don't want people to think that I'm giving you license to be a butthead or anything like that. But I do challenge you for the next 100 days to take 100 minutes of each of those 100 days and do something that is entirely selfish. So if like your normal routine would be like getting up and making you and your partner a coffee, and you just do that for your partner, maybe don't. Like, unless you are making that because it makes you feel good, maybe don't. Just allow yourself to have just like 100 minutes. Sounds like a lot, but it's only a little bit more than an hour and a half. It's less than 5% of the day. Just, I challenge you to do things that bring you joy. And if that's making coffee with her, but it's just an example. But just for 100 minutes every day, do something that brings you joy, and do it unapologetically. So if you want to go out for a walk by yourself, go do that. If you want to knit for 100 minutes while watching TV and ignoring the rest of the world, do that. Yeah. So I have a little booklet called 100 Good Days. It's just like a little journal. It's a little printed journal that is just, gives you a couple prompts for you to write things down. Another page on the other side allows you to draw your thoughts or take notes or whatever. I got it from a little stationery shop in Halifax. I actually ordered it in from Halifax. And it's called the Inkwell. And it's a cute little family-owned stationery shop that has little, notebooks like that. So if you want to support the company, I'll put the information down in the description there, so that way you can either, go and visit them if you live in Halifax or close enough to Halifax that you can go for a visit, or maybe patronize them through an online purchase. That would be phenomenal. And if you just want to go use one of your various notebooks, because I know I've got probably 6 in my trolley here that I have not written a bit in, and it's starting to burn a hole in my pocket for how much paper I've got in here and not using it. But yeah, so really it's just, take 100 minutes throughout the day. To do something for yourself, and do it for 100 days. Yeah. At first it was hard. It's getting easier for me to do these things. And what I plan to do, whether or not it actually happens, because I don't want to feel like I'm obligating myself to do this, but I'm going to take some photos and some other things to document what I have been doing for my 100 minutes over these next 100 days. And right now I'm taking unofficial part of Tour de Fleece. I'm just trying to get rid of some of my spinning fiber so I can have a justification to go buy more. So I might I might go and take a long form video of just me spinning, have the microphone sitting on the spinning wheel, so all that you can hear is just the sounds of the spinning wheel. We'll see how that works out auditorily. And just upload a long video of me just spinning as an ASMR thing. See if people enjoy that. And then hopefully over the next few weeks here throughout the summer, I'm going to ease back into our regular programming. So going into, not going to say bi-weekly, but to do a project video where I'm updating you on the projects, where I'm at each of them. Do a project-based video or two here as time goes on. Some tutorials. Comment down below which tutorials you'd like to see first, and go from there. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you don't mind this shorter than normal podcast, although I say that, and looking at the timer, it's not that much shorter than some of the other ones. But if you still think I'm the worsted, comment down below, put a little thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I'll see you in a little bit. Bye, guys. Oops. I knocked over something I'm going to show. Anyway,